Welcome to PTTV. Today we are with Susan Steele from Performance Breakthrough. I'm really looking forward to chatting to her, a really interesting lady and a really interesting business. So really welcome, Susan.
Thank you very much for having me.
We're very excited to be talking to you today. Would you like to give us a wee background, bit of an information about yourself?
Yes, okay. Well, I worked in insurance for 26 years, but whenever my own sons were 12 and 10, we realised that my eldest was, well, we realised before this that he had low concentration because he was never out of the headmaster's office. But and then we realised that my youngest son was actually dyslexic. He had difficulty reading, couldn't retain his spellings, couldn't indeed write a sentence and by the time he was in P6. And when tested, he had an IQ of 121, so he's very smart, top 9% in the UK, but he couldn't prove it on paper. So with all of that going on, I looked into what was available and realised that I really had to go private to get this sorted. I didn't want to go into the sort of the mix of giving them extra spellings, and I just shouted quite a lot, so I had to do something about it. So we found a programme of balance and coordination here in Northern Ireland. We paid £4,000 to sort the whole thing out, but it was the best money my husband and I ever spent. And a year later, my youngest son's chronological age of reading and spelling was up to his average age, with spelling just 8 months behind, and it had been 3.5 years behind before we started doing the exercises. I was blown away by that. Also, my eldest son, who had never been out of the headmaster's office, at the first year Parents' Day, we had left the auditorium our tail between our legs, our heads down, and my son was devastated because every teacher was complaining about him, basically. And by the end of second year, we were met at the door by the year head, and I saw her coming towards me thinking, what has he done now? And she came to me and said, Mrs. Steele, I hope you have a wonderful evening. Your son has totally turned it round.
It's amazing.
And the rest is history. He now works for us in the business, and my youngest son is a surveyor for one of our big firms here in Northern Ireland.
Wow.
And passed his HNC with a distinction merit, I should say, without extra help, without needing the extra time or a reader or a scribe or anything. He was able to do it off his own merit.
That's amazing. So obviously all that success and seeing that the programme really worked, that obviously inspired you to then think a bit further afield rather than just your own family?
Absolutely. I couldn't shut up about it and just realised that I had to do something about it. And I worked both jobs for a year. I stayed in insurance and worked with families part-time, essentially as guinea pigs to make sure that we could do it. The firm that we had gone to actually went into administration, but that's beside the point. I found the original research in Seattle that Dr. Frank Belgau had done and went and trained with him in Seattle, and came back and started working with other families then and saw the results in those as well. So it wasn't just because of the work that I'd put into my family, other people were seeing the results as well. So 9 years down the line, that's what we've been doing, and just trying to spread the word, and word of mouth is working.
That's brilliant. And obviously you were at a stage where you had a career essentially, but you were going into something completely new, something that you'd never done before. I mean, how did you make that leap of faith?
I literally jumped off the cliff.
Yeah. And sometimes it takes you to do that though, especially I think people keep saying, starting your own business, there's never a good time. You've always got a family or a mortgage or an excuse or a better time will come along.
Yeah.
I think it does just take, so you definitely say jump off the cliff, that's your advice.
Well, it took me 3 years, having worked with my own children, it took me 3 years to jump off that cliff, but it just got to a stage where the voice in my head just kept going, you have to do this.
Yeah.
Because what was happening was I was hearing stories on the TV, and maybe, at the end of the day, it's hard. Some children had committed suicide, and I'm sitting listening to the news and thinking, please don't say he had ADHD or whatever. And the next thing the report would say, the child had what they class as learning difficulty, whatever. These are very smart kids. But, you know, there was something going on that child couldn't prove how smart they were, and they were frustrated. And then they maybe turn to drugs, or they turn to alcohol, or they just disrupt the class, and everybody is shouting at them from morning to night. None of us as adults could put up with that.
Yeah.
Let alone a 14-year-old or a 12 or a 7-year-old, whatever, you know. And so they just become totally despondent. They stay in their room or whatever, or else indeed they take their life. And I used to just end up shouting at the screen going, no, because I knew that I could do something about it, and yet felt, well, I'm in a job, and what do I do? And I've 2 kids, and, you know, so then it just got so much that I just went, you know what, let's just do it.
And so initially it was just yourself?
Just myself. I worked from home for a year, and people came to my home, and believed me, in my living room, and the progress was there. And of course we provide support for a year, so we see the parents at 6-week intervals, and so we make real friendships out of it as well. But then well, it just got to the stage where I thought, you know, I need premises, and so again it probably took me two years, after 2 years of working at home, and then bought or rented the premises in Marvel Garden Village in Newton Abbey. And we've been there ever since. We're not there now, what, 6-7 years?
And so the business has grown?
It has, yeah. My eldest son now works for me, which is
Brilliant.
Fabulous, because he has such an insight. He was that child sitting in the classroom thinking, he told me that in P5 he remembers one day thinking, right, I'm really going to concentrate today. And he listened to the teacher, and he said to me, Mum, he says, every word she said had to swim through like Weetabix in my head. And he says, I finally put my hand up because I got the answer, only to realise that the teacher had moved on. Not her fault, she had 30 other kids in the class. But, you know, he had been so focused on trying to work out what the answer was that he missed the fact that someone else had already answered it. And he said he sat back that day and went, I really tried there. And that still didn't work. Right, where's that rubber till I get out of here?
Yeah.
And of course, knowing our John's luck, it hit off Lucy's head, and he's at it again, headmaster's office. And this was the sort of thing. And of course, the teacher only sees the rubber. You know, that's all they will see, because they have a class to teach, and there could be somebody else messing about in the other corner, you know. But there was a thought process there that really frightened him, that he thought, no matter how hard he actually said the words to me, no matter how hard I tried, the worse it got.
Yeah.
So this is where these kids can become very despondent in the classroom and just disengage.
Yeah. And what sort of children is it that you work with, Susan?
All. I mean, we work from age 5. We sometimes take an age 4, but we generally take from age 5, and we can go right up. I mean, the balance and coordination exercises that we do help everybody. So, I mean, we work with sports people with the exactly the same exercise, because they need to be able to concentrate, focus. They need spatial awareness. They need hand-eye coordination, whatever. To be able to read the game better. Children in school need to be able to read social cues.
Yeah.
In order to have a friend. If they can't read social cues, they're talking on and on and on about a subject, and the other kids are going, really? And then they tend to disengage. It's not that they don't like the child, it's just the fact that they're not in their world. And so it can look as if the child then ends up walking around the playground on their own or whatever. Children who can't concentrate, children who get very frustrated at the little things, can't get to sleep at night, maybe handwriting is difficult because they've no hand-eye coordination, reading skills, retaining spellings. A biggie for a lot of children is that they get the 10 out of 10 spellings right on the Friday.
I know, and I've been there as a teacher and a parent,
Mm-hmm.
that they've got it right, but next week you're like, that was in your spellings last week, how could you not be spelling it right? But it's almost, you have that retention for that little half an hour of time, and it's gone. Yeah.
One child described it to me, I love this story, one child described it to me, she said to me, she was 9, and she said, Susan, it's like this. She says, everybody in the classroom has a helium balloon with a string and a box beside them. And their box has their spellings in it. She says, my helium balloon doesn't have a box. So I let go of the string to write a spelling, and all my spellings just float away. There's nothing there, you know. And that's it. You know, it literally falls back out again. I mean, if I can give you an analogy, if you give me your pen a second.
Yes, certainly.
Bear with me on this one, you'll think I've lost it, but I think it's a good analogy. If you imagine that as a hose pipe.
Yes.
And you put the other end of the hose onto the tap. You turn the tap on and you expect the water to flow. And nothing's happening. So you go, there must be a kink or a blockage in the hose pipe. So you have to leave the hose down, go and undo the blockage, and now the water is flying everywhere. Unless you have a posh hose with a nozzle. Because the water was turned on, but it was being stopped. So if you imagine that same situation in a neural pathway in your brain, you know, you have all your little roads in your brain. So a neural pathway in your brain, okay? So spellings, for instance, are going in. They're Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. They're getting as far as the kink, but they can't get past the kink to get into the store cupboard, right? So they fall back out again. They're memorised, because these kids are smart enough to memorise 10 spellings or whatever for that Friday test, but they fall back out again. Now, possibly more frustratingly for those children, because they can prove it on paper on the Friday, and that's job done, test is done. More frustratingly is all the wonderful ideas they have in their store cupboard. They can't prove it on paper. Some can't prove it in speech. They talk around the houses, they start to tell you something and then it's gone. Or they put their hand up and as soon as their name's called out by the teacher, it's, oh no, it's away. So again, they can't prove, they know it's in there, but they can't prove it. Because they can't get it past the kink. So within this kink then, you have information trying to get in, you have information trying to get out. There's your chaos.
Yeah.
So what we do in a nutshell is, over time, and it takes a year, well, it takes 9 months for spellings to start retaining, we remove the kink.
And everything flows.
Information can go in, information can come out, frustration gone, shouting gone, tears gone. My youngest son used to be coming in from school, opening the zip of his bag to take his books out, crying at the thought of what he had ahead of him. He was still taking the books out. The other one I had to chase around 2 hours to get the books out. You know, total opposites. Yes. But both had difficulty, and now no difficulties at all.
And what sort of things then, because you talked a lot about, you know, children and different challenges that they have, what sort of things does the programme teach, or you know, what's the process?
It's not a teach, so it's not coping strategy, so it's not more of what they find difficult.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not giving them the 100 extra spellings hoping that they'll retain eventually, because they don't. They actually don't. I mean, I had a 28-year-old who came to me who never had got his spellings until he started doing this programme, and he had worked on spellings all of those years. So we do balance and coordination. So it's a balance board, it's beanbag, it's basically, NASA said in the 1960s that if your body is not in balance, your mind cannot work effectively. So if you imagine you've got 2 sides of the brain, 2 eyes, 2 ears, 2 arms, 2 legs. If any of those 2's in the physical state are working against each other, if your right hand doesn't know what your left hand's doing, basically, if your feet are tripping over each other, if you can't ride a bike, swimming, all those sorts of things that just don't quite work for some people, then the brain, the 2 sides of the brain are not communicating properly. And so this is where you get your chaos. Because if your 2 eyes are working against each other, you have 2 signals going in. It's a split-second difference in time. That's 2 signals going in instead of 1.
Yeah.
If the 2 ears aren't working properly together, where you say, John, away upstairs and get your shoes. And he goes upstairs and then goes, what am I up here for? He got the first bit. The one ear heard the first bit. It's still processing that first bit while the information's going in from the other ear. The middle bit's missed. So they go upstairs, but they don't know what they're up there for. So there's 4 signals going in, 2 from the eyes, 2 from the ears. It should only be 2. And they should be talking together. You know, so it's getting all of these, it's working with beanbags, working with pendulum ball for timing and rhythm. It's working with super balls, bouncy balls. Again, you hear the ball bouncing, you hear the beanbag being thrown, and that trains the auditory system and brings it into timing and rhythm. Yeah. The 2 eyes, the muscles around the eyes are weak, so they can't read along a line and keep those muscles of those two eyes working in the same way. So the child gets the first line of reading out very, very well. But then it starts weakening, the message starts weakening to the muscles. So then the child starts reading each word on the page. And it becomes very, very stilted. So we train the muscles around the eyes in order to work coherently together and create a stronger connection to the brain. Bottom line is, if you can't focus on the physical, you can't concentrate on the mental. So there's your concentration. That's your ADD. That's your attention deficit. So once the child can strengthen those muscles, make a better connection, they no longer have the difficulty of not being able to concentrate.
Yeah.
And they can take in what the teacher's saying and go, all right, is that it? Okay. And let's get on with it. As children who are wired properly, who are balanced properly, just do and take for granted that they do.
Yeah.
But these other kids are sitting, and at some stage, usually age 7, they start looking around that classroom and going, this game's not straight. You mean I'm supposed to remember this stuff? Pass the test?
Yeah.
Because I've never been able to do it.
Yeah.
So we enable them to be able to, we unlock the potential,
Yeah.
Michelle, that's the bottom line. We unlock all that mess that's in there and allow them to prove just absolutely how intelligent they are.
Yeah. And I think too, just, you know, talking and listening to you, and, you know, we've obviously talked a lot about what you do, and what amazes me is the uniqueness of the offering as well, because it's not just, it's a family program, it's, and the impact is massive. It's not just on the child, it's on the classroom, it's on their classmates, it's on the teacher, it's on the parents, it's on the grandparents, it's on the family relationship, it's on the brothers, it's on the sisters. It's the impact is it's like a wave effect, isn't it? It starts very small and it just blossoms out.
It goes right down to the shopkeeper no longer getting their shelves cleared on a Saturday morning when this whirlwind comes into the shop, and the mother having to carry them out under their arm. Now, obviously they're not all like that, but it does. I mean, for a child who is sitting trying to read those high frequency words, for instance, that's the, at, is, in, that, what, all those words. Those words, I mean, I used to sit with my son and go, Peter, seriously, if you sound out the 2 letters, you've said the word. At. Michelle, it didn't mean anything to him. He was reading words like horse and garage, right? And I realised a few years ago that he could read words like horse and garage because there's a picture in your head for a horse. You can picture a garage. There is no picture for at.
Yeah.
Or the, got, that, what. These high frequency words have no picture. These are visual learners. That's why my son is now a surveyor. He's a perfect genius of an engineer. But he couldn't picture up or get a picture in his head of the word the.
Yeah, which is, it makes so much sense when you think about it that way.
Yeah, but that was never anything that was brought to our attention. I just come up with that one day. What is it about this? Because everybody was coming in and saying, "Oh, the real problem is these high frequency words." And then I worked out it's because there is no picture, you know. So that, I mean, you're saying about the impact for a child sitting there and a parent like me sitting, going to my child, basically in brackets saying, "Are you actually stupid?" I didn't say that to him, but that was the and I mean, he wasn't stupid, so he knew that as a parent, he's looking at his mum and going, "I don't know why I don't know this. How scary must that be, Michelle?"
Yeah.
You know, so that's, and the frustration levels and everything, it just does. It ripples out to everybody, because as I say, I used to shout at my son because he wouldn't get out of bed. He wouldn't get out of the bed that he wouldn't get into the night before, right? Because he wouldn't go to bed, so then he wouldn't get out of the bed. And then he would be shouted at because we were always late for school. He'd be shouted at in school. I mean, that was a given. I used to get calls to school. I mean, I used to have to get out of work early at times, and my boss was really good about it. But that impacted on my job.
Yeah.
Then he would come home. He'd be shouted at for 2 hours to get the homework done. He could do the homework, but he wouldn't sit down and do it. Then he was shouted at because he wouldn't eat the same dinner as the rest of us. And I used to think, he just wants a dinner made for himself. Attention seeking. Not at all. It's a sensory thing. He used to smell stew like a farmyard. Now, you're not going to put that in your mouth. And then he was shouted at probably a couple of times during the night because he wouldn't do whatever it was I needed him to do. And then he'd be shouted at because he wouldn't go to bed. Then that child woke up the next morning and it all started again.
Yeah.
I used to wake up the next morning and think, I am not going to shout at him this day. And within 30 seconds, I was on his back again. That's dreadful.
Yeah. And even just, I actually think the stress it puts on a parent as well, because it's that feeling of guilt, it's that feeling of must be my fault, there's something I'm doing wrong here. You know, all of that as well as the scariest part of all of how can I help my child? Mm-hmm. I am frustrated, I'm trying my best, I've tried shouting, I've tried being nice, I've tried giving him extra work, I've tried, and that's frustration as a parent is very, very stressful. It's stressful enough being a parent.
Yeah.
But when you've got a child that you think you're trying your best to help and you've done every sort of avenue, you've went down every avenue of, I went to speak to the teacher, they've given me extra work, I've tried that, I've spoke nicely to him, I've shouted at him, it's just like a vicious circle that just goes around and around and around.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing for parents is the fear of the future. It's if he's doing this now, what's he going to be like when he's 16? Where's he going to end up? How's he going to hold down a job? How's he going to hold down a relationship? You know, I mean, parents that come to us now, it's funny because, you know, I'm saying to them, the daddies usually think the mummies are too soft and the mummies usually think the daddies are too hard, right? That's a given as well. So I'm saying to them, right, see for the next 6 months, it might not take 6 months, but see for the next 6 months when you're doing these exercises, do whatever you have to do to keep that child sane. If that means, you know, parents would be saying, now you're 11 now, you need to be keeping a note of your own books in your bag, or you need to know when your PE day is or your swimming day or whatever. Forget about all that. You're arguing about it and they can't do it because they haven't got sequencing. They're not organised. Do you know what? And I mean, I'm not, and I say to them, I'm not saying to you that you're going to have to do that for the rest of your life or his life. And see, as soon as they're able to start doing it for themselves, they'll not see you in their wake. They want to be able to do it for themselves. But at the minute, they're not wired to be able to do it. Okay? It's like asking a child who's just taken their first step and standing looking at them and going, can you not walk to the door yet? Or is there any chance of you going to Spar to get the milk? You know, you wouldn't do it. And so in developmental terms, I mean, these children weren't developed properly at 5 months in the womb. It goes right back to that. And I mean, obviously, whenever parents come to see us, we explain all of that to them. But we're going right back to developmental. So if they're not wired to be able to know when their PE day is, you shouting at them, you could paste them up the wall 5 times a day, Michelle, and it'll not make them know the right day next week.
Yeah.
So you're having futile arguments with these children, with your children, and it's not getting anywhere. It's just creating a terrible atmosphere in the home. So for the first 6 months, I'm saying to them, do whatever you have to do. Should it mean you go upstairs and get the shoes yourself? Should it mean that you pack their bag for them? I did. I used to pack John's bag. No, he used to pack his bag and I checked it while he was started doing the exercises. And then I said to him one day, your bag's been right for 2 weeks. You can now do that yourself. But I removed the fear of him walking in, opening that zip and going, oh dear Lord, I've forgotten that French book again. That sick feeling that he must have had. So you remove all that and you work with them. So then the child knows that, okay, mum's not going to shout at me. She has my back. Yeah. Dad's not going to shout at me and put pressure on me. He has my back.
Yeah.
And that removes a lot of the pressure off them so that then they can do the exercises and the progress starts happening and the fog clears from the child's mind and they can get on with it themselves. You don't create a selfish child or a lazy child. They pick up the baton as soon as they're able to. Which is fabulous.
And interestingly, you mentioned a wee bit about the science behind it, because obviously there's a lot of research. This isn't just something that you thought, this is a good idea, I'm going to go do it. No. But there's obviously a lot of science behind it.
There is. It's the development of the vestibular system. The vestibular system is the balance system. It's housed between the canals of the inner ear. There's fluid in there and there's little filaments giving feedback. If that balance system or vestibular is underdeveloped at 5 months in the womb, there's going to be a problem with the connection between the other senses, because that is the foundational sense. That balance system is developed before the senses of sight, of hearing, of taste, touch and smell. Hence why my son smelt stew like a farmyard, okay? It wasn't developed. And so, yeah, I mean, Dr. Belguy took 40 years of his life putting this program together. Every exercise that he developed during that time works with every area of the body, and therefore works with every area of the processing of the brain. So that's why everybody does the same exercises. It's not a prescribed suite of exercises depending on what's going on.
Yes.
Everybody does the same thing, because the body is the body and the mind is the mind, and we are connecting, making a better connection between the body and mind so that everything works. I sort of imagine it almost like before, whenever they come into me first, it's like an orchestra warming up, if you've ever heard that. The oboe, I think, gives the first note, and then everything becomes a cacophony of sound. It's all a mess. And then he doesn't do it like that, but you know what I mean. The conductor comes on and calls everything to quiet, and then the orchestra starts playing, and it starts playing together as one. And that's basically what happens in a flowery sort of way, but it just means that these children can not just get on with their lives, but
excel,
actually, yeah,
and reach their potential.
Absolutely.
And actually, I think most importantly, show their potential, because there's nothing more frustrating, and you know it yourself, that you know you can do something, but there's some sort of barrier, whether it be you don't have time, or you don't have the energy, or you've got other things happening, or you just need an extra skill to be able to do it. There's nothing more frustrating than knowing you can do something, but having a barrier to not be able to do it. And as a child, being able to see everybody else being able to do stuff, and you think, I know I've got the ideas, I know I can write that really exciting story, but I have this barrier where I actually just can't get it on paper.
A couple of lines go down.
It's the pure frustration, and then as you say, then you get the acting up and the being silly. And I mean, I know myself, I was a teacher for 15 years, and you always know the children that there's more than meets the eye. It's not, I mean, I honestly truly believe that children aren't naughty just because they want to be naughty. No. Or, their behaviour's bad because they're thinking, they wake up in the morning and go, what can I do to really annoy people today? Kids, that's not how they're built, and it's not how they're programmed. It's just sheer frustration of, I really want to be able to do something, or I want to say something, or I want to get a point across, but I don't know how. So I just get fed up and say, right, what's the point?
Yes, and throw the pen or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, if these children had the capacity to be able to sit in the morning and go, right, whose life can I wreck today? They would have the capacity to be able to write that story.
Yes.
So they don't. They're not conniving children. They're not lazy. They're not, just can't be bothered.
Yeah.
It's not that. It never is that. There's always a reason why. I mean, a child will come into us and they can't wear socks. Right? And the parent will think, they're just fussy about their socks. It's not. This is a biggie, actually, and I hope I have time to tell you about this one. If you imagine, there's sensors in the skin, right? There's sensors to detect heat and cold and all the rest of it. But there's sensors to detect the light touch, and there's sensors to detect the deep impact. Okay? Now, so many children, if a child comes into us and they're annoyed by socks, they can't wear jeans, labels annoy them. And I'm not talking the scratchy jumper, I'm talking just normal stuff. We're not supposed to be aware of our clothes on us, right? But these kids are annoyed by it, and it can take them 20 minutes to get socks on because and the seam has to be just right, and they think it's okay, and then no, it's not okay. And meanwhile, the mother's going, oh my God, I'm going to be late for work, get the shoes on, whatever. Those sensors in the skin are switched the wrong way. Just like for someone who has difficulty reading, sometimes the B's and D's can be switched the wrong way. Consequences can be switched the wrong way, that someone can't think before they act. And then they're terribly sorry after the event, after they've done it, right? So these are switched the wrong way. So the light touch becomes, you walk past and brush past one of these children and they're like, ow. And you're like, for goodness sake, Ryan, sure, I hardly touched you. What are you on about? But that sent that signal to the brain. So they got a deep impact signal from that touch, right? They could run into the, we have a pillar in our clinic, and I say they could run into that pillar and bounce off it, get up and run on, because that deep impact sensation sent a light touch, no feeling.
It's crazy.
Crazy. Now, what is even crazier, I can still feel that, by the way, whereas they wouldn't feel that at all. Okay, that slap that I give myself. So what's even crazier is, or what's even more magnificent is, that our sense of feeling is our sense of touch, rather, is our sense of feeling, and our sense of feeling is our emotions. So whatever's happening in the physical is having an effect on what's happening emotionally. So a child who that sends a deep signal means they will get really upset about the little thing. The top of their leg broke. Meltdown. But someone could actually die in the family. The family pet could die. They'll not register that because their emotions are switched the wrong way around. So that means that, for friendship, what does that do for friendship? It means you can't empathise with anybody. Okay? So our exercise is by throwing a bean bag, you're hitting the skin. But it's not a big deal. A lot of children would grab the bean bag. We teach them to just let it fall gently into their hand. It's regulating the sensor points in the skin. You're working with all the proprioceptory points, working with elbows. But the skin comes into line. And once that child can start wearing socks and not be aware of them on their skin, their emotions have come into line.
It's amazing. And how long, roughly, is the programme for? I know, obviously, different people are different, but...
Yeah, but generally a year.
That's it done?
Yeah, that's it done. Because we do 4 lots of 3 months, okay, which obviously is a year, but we've exercises that we do over, a 3-month period. Once something is connected, so say, for instance, socks, okay, once a child can wear socks, that then takes 3 months to hardwire that connection to make sure that stays there, okay? Once that's hardwired, that's permanent change. They will never, they won't wake up at 27 one day and go, oh, my socks are annoying me again. I need to do the program again. No. Once it's hardwired, it's neuroplasticity is the science behind it. So, once you can ride a bike, you can always ride a bike. Once you lay down chopsticks on the piano, and do it for long enough, you can go away, leave that piano for 20 years, come back and go lift the lid and go, what was it I used to play? Oh yeah. And your fingers will go to the keys of chopsticks. It's neuroplasticity. So it's the same principle.
Yeah, it's really, really...
So 1 year does it. That's a lot of hard wiring because it's 4 lots of 3 months. Okay. Yeah. The exercises are carried out at home so they can, do it at home with their parents. And it's 15 minutes, maximum 15 minutes, once a day, for 5 days a week.
So it's not a big investment of time.
No.
And as you say, back to the whole family can get involved. So actually that active support that parents can give probably eases the situation at home as well, because everybody knows that they're working together to an end goal.
Absolutely.
Which changes the mindset, I think, from the shouting and the...
Yes. Well, fathers have gone out crying, realising, wow, I thought he was just lazy.
Yeah.
Okay. I stopped shouting right away. As soon as I realised that John was not having a laugh. Do you know, I used to say to people, he couldn't keep it up. And yet he was keeping it up. He couldn't keep that level of, messing around up. And yet he was, because every day was like a new day.
Yeah.
But I think that's where we do a free evaluation, right? So parents can come and find out all about it, and we get the child on the balance board and they see in the physical what is actually happening. It's not as if they walk out the door and go, I didn't see anything that she saw. If we see it, they see it, okay? If we see nothing going on, we'll tell them, okay? But the free evaluation means that mum and dad can sit there and realise and it just helps them to go behind and get underneath why their child has been doing what they've been doing. And it gives them that empathy as well. It also means that the child realises that mum and dad aren't just shouting at them.
Yeah, they're not just blaming me for being naughty.
Yeah, and they're not just shouting at them just because they want to spoil their fun or whatever. That it's actually because they love them. That, you know, if they didn't love them and didn't care, well, sure, they just let them run on, you know. And so it really binds the family before they even start the exercises. It binds the family. And I mean, my son on the way out of the place that we went to said to me, does this mean I don't have to feel like this for the rest of my life?
Which is so scary when you look at it, but amazing at the same time.
Amazing at the same time. He was 12.
Absolutely wonderful. And you mentioned sports people as well, because
Yeah.
I know it's not just obviously a big element to what you do, and you can see the passion for children and the education and being able to actually send them on their way,
Yes.
totally reaching their potential and being focused on what they want to do. But you do actually work with adults as well, and sports
We do.
specifically.
Basically, back to my Peter. My Peter could not have given two hoots about reading. Couldn't have cared less. He actually said to me at one stage, Mummy, what does anybody get out of reading? But then he came in from the garden one night. He was doing the exercises, and he came in from the garden one night and he says, Mummy, he says, I'm going to keep doing those exercises. And I went, oh, have you found a book that you like? And he went, no. He says, my football's now awesome. So he realised that he was more switched on. He was reading that speed of the ball coming in better. He no longer had to think, where does my foot need to be in order to connect with that ball? I haven't got time for that, Michelle. It's supposed to be instinctive. And he was reading the game better, okay? So that was okay. So then, obviously, every child that came to us for concentration, for couldn't get to sleep, for disruptive behaviour, whatever it was, all improved in sport. Now, it didn't make them all Olympians, right? But a child who came to us that couldn't ride a bike, within 4 months generally can ride a bike.
But it's back to that coordination as well, isn't it?
Of course it is. And then I had a girl who was 13 and she was playing hockey. Very, very good at hockey, right? She was on the list to be picked for the Ulster 14 hockey team. And she was picked for it. But the coach, whenever she'd started doing these exercises, the coach had come out to her dad and said, what have you been feeding her? Because even though she was already really good, she'd sharpened up even further, right? And I said to her, she came to us because she couldn't retain her spellings, right? It was nothing to do with her hockey that she came to us. And I said to her, if I'd have said to you, you were doing this for your hockey. And she went, oh, I'd have got it. She says, it's not easy to see how it helps retain your spellings. She says, that's not something that you can actually, it's a bit like you can't conjure up a picture of how that actually happens. But she says, while I'm standing on this board, hitting a pendulum ball with my hand or with the stick, she says, I can absolutely see how it's helping my hockey. Okay, so now we're working with golfers, we worked with footballers, we worked with lady footballers, and it's amazing. And we do the same exercises, and it's funny because the people who come to us for their sport, their concentration improves. Of course it does. They start reading books.
Yeah.
For the first time ever. They're more organised. They know where their keys are. They have a spot now for their keys as opposed to, where's my keys? You know, they're just more organised in life. But their sport, that's given them that wee competitive edge in their sport that everybody's looking for, you know. Because if someone's really good at sport, well, they're playing along with other people who are really good at sport. So they need that little extra bit, and that's what they're buying into.
And that's amazing. And you've had loads of success with that as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it is. And I mean, in some ways, I think, you know, people out there can sort of think, she thinks she can sort everything out. It's not that. We can't. But we can sort an awful lot of the basics out. And it's, you know, these children, back to these children again, who are highly intelligent, really smart in certain areas, can't get the basics.
Yeah.
There's nothing more basic than the reading of the word the, apparently, and yet that basic isn't there.
Yep, and that's the problem, because what happens is it's not happened at 3, 4, 5, 6 years old. Mm-hmm. You're now at 9, and that's when the gaps start to be noticed.
Absolutely.
At 4 or 5 years old, the gap possibly isn't as wide, and it just widens and widens and widens, and then by the time you get to then, a long time
Yes.
that it's been widening for.
Yes.
And as you say, then it becomes very difficult to be able to manage.
It does, because people can think it'll eventually click. I used to write the sentences out for Peter, and he used to copy them.
It'll come around at some point.
Yeah.
It'll
I used
click.
to think, he'll eventually go, okay, so that's how you structure a sentence. We worked with the first guy on the program was a 28-year-old, and he didn't know which where went where, or which there went there. And I said to him when he first started, I said, do you want me to explain it to you? And we looked at each other. I went, oh, for goodness sake, who else is going to tell you at this age? And I explained the rule to him. Didn't get it. 3 months, didn't get it. 6 months, didn't get it. Right? And at 8 months, he texted me to say, he phoned me actually and said, Susan, I went to Eason's and bought a book for P4s, which I think is Key Stage 2, right? Bought a book, because that's when the rules of grammar are put in. Okay, if you don't get them, as you said, if you don't have them by then, well, they're not going to revisit them again. And he says, they're now in. And he says, I was tutored on those from P3, right the way through primary school, and right the way through grammar school. His mother did everything. She sent him light treatment, you name it. She tried absolutely everything. And worked for me at one stage as well. She's retired now. And we worked with young offenders and everything, and because she'd seen the difference in her son. But that fella phoned me to say that they were now in at 8 months.
It's crazy too, isn't it?
So it doesn't just click. You don't just get to a certain stage of bigness and all of a sudden, bing, it happens. It just doesn't happen. Otherwise we wouldn't have adults who have difficulty still reading.
Yeah.
If it just happened.
It's crazy. It's absolutely amazing. And every time I talk to you, I'm just stunned that not more people are doing it.
Yeah, I know. And I sort of, in some ways,
I think there's a wee element in everybody that could probably do with some sort of.
Yeah, do you know, I did it myself. I did it at 43 myself. I did the programme because I wanted to know exactly what I was asking everybody else to do. It's all very well my children having done it, but I did it myself. It's funny actually, because I wouldn't have been a finisher, right? I used to hoover the house. I would have looked at the hoover and went, will I put it away? No, go and have a cup of coffee. I wouldn't have put it away, right? And I started doing these exercises, and within, I can't really remember, it was probably about 6 weeks, and I was hoovering the house. I had done it in between now, but I was hoovering the house anyway. And I had taken out the plug and was wrapping the flex around and carrying it across my kitchen to put it into the store cupboard. And I looked down and went, I'm putting the hoover away. There had been like an invisible force field that had stopped me finishing. Weird.
But again, something that you never even thought of, knew of, until actually was...
Just knew it annoyed my husband. But, I didn't do it. I couldn't do it. I had every intention of putting that hoover away when I started. I didn't. And the number of mothers that I've said that to, and they go, oh, it's just me. I go, I'll tell you what, do these parents, adults can do it as well. I mean, the cost even for the programme is for the family. It's not per person, right? So everybody can do it in the family. And I will evaluate anybody in the family, okay? So, but I mean, parents, adults really can do this twice a week. Children need to do it more often, just in little bite sizes, because they're taking in new information all the time. Whereas as adults, we're doing what we do. We just want to be able to hone it a wee bit. So twice a week. And mothers who do it, dads who do it twice a week, and they just notice a big difference. They notice a difference actually in the whole relationship in the family.
Yeah, everybody's probably calmer, more pulled together, more with it.
Yeah.
Things maybe happen a bit more smoothly.
Yes. It's the awareness of other people.
Yeah.
It's the awareness of realising that other people have things to do as well, and maybe I'll just go and do that, or I'll not disturb her with that now. I'll wait and speak to her about it later, rather than just barging in and going, it's all about them.
Yes.
So it just allows, as I say, I know it sounds as if I'm saying, I can do all these wonderful things. It's just the fact the brain takes over, the brain reorganises itself and starts working properly without a whole mess of chaos going on inside it. And once that mess and chaos is taken out, and things do work more smoothly.
And it's not even that, it's the success that you've had, the children that you've seen with different, loads of different complaints, everything from scratching or, not sleeping, not behaving, all of that. But it's the journey that you see that they go through and that they come out the other end a completely different person.
It's hard. That's emotional.
Oh, sorry. I'm going to tip you over the edge now.
No, it's hard to describe, actually, and I suppose this is where my frustration comes from. In a way I blame myself. I have been too nice and kind about the fact that, the system is broken. The system was broken. I mean, my sons are now 25 and coming 23. The system was broken when they did the programme 13 years ago. The system hasn't got any better. In fact, it's probably got worse. Parents are being told, you're on a waiting list.
Yeah.
And they hold out for that appointment.
Yeah, and I think actually, for me, the scariest part of you're on a waiting list and they get the appointment and then a statement maybe comes through, a diagnosis maybe comes through, but then what happens?
We're not changing the brain.
It's like, well, okay, this is actually, we found out that this is maybe the challenge that your child has, but the resources aren't there to help support parents deal with that situation then. No. So it's almost like, here you go, here's the problem, now you go off and
They've waited
get it
2
sorted
years
out.
to receive a piece of paper that basically says, you know what, you're right.
Your child did have a problem.
He does have a problem.
But there you go. And there's no, and that's my, my biggest thing. And the same, I mean, I started learning mode, for example, because of that parents, the curriculum's changed so much. Yeah. Parents are frustrated. They want to help their children. They want to support them, but they're afraid of confusing them. But things have changed so much in education. It's very hard for parents and it's very hard even for teachers to... You've got 30 children in a class, you've got 30 different children, you've got children maybe don't speak English, you've got children with other issues, you've got children with medical issues. Trying to deal with that all is very, very difficult. And as you say, then it comes to you've got this child, they've got a statement, they've waited forever to get it, but where's the support after it? It's like...
And like that, they're given maybe 100 extra spellings, which causes more frustration. Because if the child wasn't wired to take in and hold on to 10 spellings, what are they going to do with 100?
Yeah.
The child who is sent out of the class because they're misbehaving. Well, if they're continually misbehaving and they're not getting it, well then there's a misfire there. There's something there. They don't, as we said earlier, they don't get up in the morning and think, right, who can I annoy today? But I do feel that, I think I need to really start shouting a bit more about the fact that we are unique. We are going a spade depth down below everything else that's out there. And everything else that's out there is fabulous. And everybody's working with what they know to make life easier for these children. But if we can get the spade depth down below all of that and get to us first, then everything that the teachers are putting in, everything that the extra, the SENCOs of teachers are putting in, all that information. Because kids, by the time a kid reaches 9, they have missed out on P3 and P4. There's your formative years, right? So once they've done our programme, I then need the tutors. I need the extracurricular teachers
to fill those gaps,
filling in those gaps. So we're not saying, oh no, everything out there, no, rub all that out. Not in your life. We need everything working together, but we need the children wired first so that they can eventually go, right, okay, I've got it now. As opposed to getting to 5th year and being marked out of the system, having ticked all the boxes that we did everything we possibly could for that kid, and they still can't read. Still can't retain a spelling, can't write. Give them an iPad. And yet, I tell you what, most of the people that I've ever worked for, so they own their own businesses, highly intelligent people, were either dyslexic or ADHD, or both.
It's crazy. But
they have an entourage now. They failed in school, but they had the wherewithal to be able to make a business, and they have an entourage writing their emails, sorting their filing out, organising them, telling them where they need to be, because they can't do it for themselves. And some people can't push through that.
Yeah.
You know, we all talk about, everybody talks about the Richard Bransons and all the rest of it. It's 1%.
Yeah.
You know, most people just
get on with whatever level they're at and struggle
on.
on.
Yeah, struggle.
That's it.
Most people just struggle on and try and hide it. And I mean, the fella that we worked with, the 28, he used to bring a paper under his arm to work. Didn't read it.
But just to
read the
part.
headlines and saw but so as he could at least talk, you know.
Yeah.
But he was working in a very
it's just finding it's basically, as you say, coping mechanisms, ways to glaze over the fact that you have these difficulties underneath. Yeah, and even that is so stressful in itself.
Of course it is.
You know,
for someone who can't get their words out well, they don't know what they're going to be hit with.
Yeah.
On a minute-to-minute basis.
So you're sitting on the edge of your seat at every opportunity thinking, please don't ask me something that I'm not going to know the answer to, or that I don't know how to answer, or I don't want to look weird and I don't want to look...
Nobody does.
Yeah.
You know, this is why we have uniforms.
Yeah.
You know? And it's those kids that are sitting on eggshells. They're in fight or flight. So this is where the slightest little thing
tips them.
Can
blow
their gasket. Whereas the rest of us are sitting, we're quite relaxed, we can take in information, and somebody says something to us, and we can boil up a bit, but then we can logically work it out. That's a physical thing as well, that physical of, you know, the tightness here in the shoulders and the tight, whenever a child comes to us and they're throwing a beanbag and they're like a raptor. Yeah. Raptors are always cross anyway, even though they've just eaten, but you know, they are like a raptor because they're all tight here. That tightness in the physical causes the tightness, the rigidity, the anxiety. The frustration levels are, because they are literally in fight or flight, they're attaching more to their bottom part of their brain, which is the reactory part of the brain, doesn't think, just reacts, it's our fight or flight. And because of that tightness here, that creates a tightness around nearly the brain that they can't reach their logic.
Yeah. To
be able to reason it, and then parents can't reason it out. They're trying to talk to a child and they just can't get through. You know, and the child's throwing a wobbler and having to be carried out of the shopping centre or whatever, and you know, so that's
absolutely amazing. What's the future? What's the future hold for Performance
Breakthrough? The future is I want a 4-story building, and I want to work with. Well, the children will probably be on the 3rd floor because we actually want a slide.
Oh, you've really thought about this.
I have visualised this. We want a slide coming down the stairs because I want to be able to use the slide every day, right? So the children on the 3rd floor. 4th floor is Skyping the world because we work with people all over the world. We Skype America. We're working with people in Germany at the minute, with Portugal, obviously the whole of the British Isles, and we work with them on Skype and we can see them, which is brilliant. So I need time zones, so I need a full floor on the top where people can be just working 24/7. Not the same people, obviously, we'll do it in shifts. And then the 3rd floor is children, and 2nd floor is sports, and 1st floor is the elderly, because we haven't even touched on that because we haven't started working with the elderly yet. But I do feel that autism and Alzheimer's is very close. Very similar.
Very, very interesting.
Very interesting. And Parkinson's as well. There's a motor connection going on with Parkinson's.
Very interesting. So watch this space is what you're saying.
Watch this space is what
I'm saying.
And
if somebody wanted to reach out to you, Susan, and come and have a chat or avail of your services, what's the best way to reach you?
The website, www.performancebreakthrough.co.uk. And on that there's our mobile numbers for myself, for John, my son, and email address, etc. So there's a contact form on the website, and if anyone would like to come and avail of the free evaluation and bring their child along, or come along for themselves, or indeed for their sporting life, just get in touch. And we'll be there to help. Absolutely amazing.
And just even the success stories. I mean, you go on to Susan's website and you'll see the success stories on there as well, and all the different things that they're doing and how they're working with loads of different reasons why people are coming. So thank you so much for coming today. It's been absolutely amazing, so interesting, and I kind of think everybody has a wee element that they could probably tighten up. I'm back to the hoovering now. that could be me. No, thank you. That's all from us today at Profile Tree TV in the Innovation Factory. We've had a really, really interesting session with Susan Steele, and we look forward to seeing you all soon.